Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to talk about one of my favorite negotiating strategies. And it's a bit counterintuitive, so to help you understand it, we're going to first discuss one of my other favorite topics, which is German automobiles. I happen to be a big fan of BMW and of Porsche, and I remember in my early 20s attempting to buy my first BMW. I was an inexperienced car buyer, and so I was drawn in by the same marketing that's used today. You know, the low initial base price that gets you into the dealership, and then they show you all the cool stuff you can add to the car, and each one of those things comes in a package, and those packages add up real quick, don't they guys? And so at the end of the experience, you're looking at a price that's way higher than what you had in your head when you walked in the dealership, and that's what happened to me on this particular day. And I needed some space to make the decision. I didn't realize what was going on at the time. Now I can look back and realize that each package was a decision that I had to make. And when I finally made my way through all of those decisions, then I had one more big decision, which was, am I actually going to buy this car or not? And so because I was confused and overwhelmed, I left the dealership. And somehow, I don't even know how, but somehow I ended up that afternoon at the Acura dealership. And I ended up driving this model called the TL, which was not even on my radar up until that point. And at the end of the test drive, I was like, this car's pretty cool. Now, the salesperson did something really interesting at this point. After the test drive, you guys, she asked me if I wanted floor mats in this car. And I thought that was an odd question, so I said to her, of course, yeah, if I buy this car, I will want some floor mats. And she said, well, you know, being in the real estate industry, this car would look really good on you. It would make your image look fantastic. I tell you what, why don't we go sit down in my office and let's see what we can do to make you look super cool. Now, who's going to say no to that? I mean, come on. I was just like, she had me wrapped around her finger. So I go into the office and I sit down, and that's when I learned that the floor mats was the only option that I had to choose from. Either I would get floor mats or not. In Acura's model, I literally had one option. Everything else that was available for that car was already on the car. That was such a cool realization. So she said, do you want floor mats? What she really was saying is, are you going to buy this car? And of course, standing outside of her office, I had already said yes. It was a simple process to get me to the bigger yes. And a few hours later, I found myself sitting in Boston Market restaurant. Are those places still around? I don't know. I probably wouldn't go to a Boston Market these days. But I'm sitting there eating my chicken, looking out into the parking lot where my Hunter Green TL is parked, and I'm just shocked that I started the day thinking I was going to investigate buying a BMW, expecting this long process, and I'm coming home in something that I had never even considered before. Now, looking back as a sales coach, I can understand that Acura was using a very powerful negotiating strategy on me that day. And it's this: the more simple you can keep your request, the greater the odds are you're going to get what you want. Is it more simple or simpler? I don't know. I'm not an English major. But in any case, if you can keep your request simple, odds soar that you're going to get what you want out of the other party. Now, on that day, Acura wanted me to buy their car. BMW also would have liked it if I'd have bought their car, but I wasn't in the BMW, I was in the Acura. And the reason is because they made it so easy for me to say yes. So let's talk about how this applies to the real estate industry. You know, some people have spent literally their entire career in a seller's market where they wouldn't necessarily know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of an offer that's substantially lower than ask price, where they also ask for closing costs to be paid and points to buy down their interest rate and half of the furniture and like the kitchen sink too. You know, I've sold in those markets. They're called buyer's markets, and we might experience that one day again. But you don't have to be in a buyer's market to experience complication and the BMW model. You know, today in a lot of markets, buyers have to fight so hard for the house that by the time that they get to the inspection or past the inspection, they feel like they ought to have some kind of win in this deal. So they want to ask for a bunch of stuff. Now they know they've got the house, maybe they can get the seller to do a bunch of repair work. And so I've seen cases where it feels like they just did copy on the inspection report, paste into the amendment, and send it to the seller and say, hey, fix all this crap. Not realizing that what they're doing is making, what, 15, 20 asks of the seller. You're asking the seller to make 15 to 20 yes or no decisions, and what that does is overcomplicate the issue and makes it more likely that the deal could fall apart. It's a delicate moment sometimes in transactions. And so of course you have to make sure that you're following all of your local laws and regulations, but one of the ways that we handled this in Texas with one of my coaching clients just this week is we took a complicated request from a buyer's agent and we reframed it. Instead of agreeing to do all the individual items on the repair request in the amendment, what we proposed is that the seller would pay closing cost. In this case, I think it was maybe $5,000 of closing cost in lieu of repairs. And so work with your broker to make sure that that's legal in your area and that you get the correct wording for the amendments and the paperwork that you use in your state. But that's one example of how we took something complicated that was the BMW model and we simplified it and sent it back as the Acura model. And that deal worked out. The buyer said, yes, well, that's acceptable to us. And they actually thanked us, or not us, I was just the coach in this transaction, thanked my client for keeping it simple. What's that saying? Keep it simple, salesperson? Yeah. So to put it simply, here's what I'm suggesting. If you're interested in doing the best job that you can for your client, then tell them stories like this to help them understand the power in keeping their request simple. It doesn't mean they're always going to follow your advice. And it also doesn't mean that making a simple request is going to get an easy yes. There's no foolproof strategy, but I think you'll agree, especially once you try it out in your market, that following Acura's approach is pretty powerful. Now, next week, we're going to talk about one of the most persuasive phrases in the English language. I'm talking about 4 words that when strung together can make you feel like you've got superpowers. But until then, I have a favor to ask. What did you think about today's lesson? Scroll down and leave me a comment. And better than that, tag someone who you think might learn from it as well. I'm just like you and I need to be connected to new people all the time. So my name is Jason Edwards. Thanks for watching and let's go think bigger this week.